So, hi everyone. I'm here with our second Strength and Stories interviewee, Ellen Bennett. Ellen is my lovely aunt. Thank you for joining me today.
I'm delighted to be here, Grace.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're just going to dive into the questions. When you were first diagnosed with breast cancer, how did you and your family receive the news?
Well, it's quite a surreal experience to be, for me, it was a very surreal experience to be diagnosed with cancer. And I actually found the lump myself randomly, not in an organized fashion of doing breast examination, because I hadn't ever done that. But I was scheduling a mammogram, actually changing an appointment, and I was just feeling that area. And I thought, gosh, that feels like a lump. And then I forgot about it. And the appointment was in a couple of weeks, so I thought it's fine, they'll address it there.
Mhm.
So to actually get then from that date, which was probably the middle of April, and to finally get the mammogram and to get the results of it, took probably 2.5 to maybe 3 weeks at most. But it was on May 6th when the doctor called me with the news. And I think I just like shut down almost, really, because even though I had been suspecting that that was going to be the case, that it was going to be a malignant tumor, I was still shocked by it. And and I yeah, it took me a long time to process that I had cancer. And it wasn't the cancer per se that I was most concerned about, or not, and I concerned is probably not the right word, but that I was
Yeah.
most stressed. It was the treatment for it, and obviously the end result, because that's in your mind as well, right? So
Yeah.
it's shocking. It's a shocking word to hear, and you never expect to hear it for yourself. But then after a while, when you've had some time to process it and think about it, and for me, prayer was a big part of that as well, then you realize, well, why wouldn't you be affected by it? I mean, it's something for breast cancer. 1 in 7 women in this country get breast cancer. I would have thought the stats were a lot higher.
Yeah.
And because I seem to know so many people that have been touched by it.
Mhm.
And so, and that's one type of cancer, and it's a curable type of cancer. My heart thinks more of those folks who are given news, and even people that were diagnosed the same time as I was with different types of cancer that has progressed further and have since died. It's a much more, it has to be far more shocking. I mean, how do you take that in, you process all of that? In
Yeah.
terms of family response, I come from a large, loving family, so I had great support from my siblings, from my nieces and nephews, my children, my husband. I would not have been able to make this journey without all of them, particularly my husband. And when I asked him last night how he felt when he received that news, he said it's realizing that you might die and I'm going to be alone and lonely and miss you. So it's all of those things that you have to kind of come to terms with, right? And you find your way through them. It takes time.
Mhm.
You find your way through them, but it takes time to do that.
No, I can't imagine. You made such a good point. You hear about breast cancer or cancer as being such a like a prominent thing around social circles or people you know, but I can't imagine personally getting that news. So,
That's right. I think we all think we're
yeah.
invisible sometimes, but invincible. We do, because I was never going to be one of those. I've never had taken even any type of prescription drug, right? And
Yeah, wow.
I was 66 when I was diagnosed, and I thought, you're going to just live forever, and it doesn't work that way. Life doesn't work that way, right? So
Yeah.
it's shocking to hear the news first, and then to try to process that. And there's lots of times when you're angry about it, and other times when you're very sad, and
Mhm.
then other times when you're determined and you're going to fight, and there's a myriad of emotions, and I think you go through them all at different times through that,
Yeah.
even in those first few weeks, in those first few days. And I write about it, like I
Mhm.
send updates to my family and my friends about what's happening, and I give minute details about everything. And that
Oh,
was
we
that's my
love it though. We love
well,
hearing from you.
that was my that's my and I say to them all the time, I don't care if they're too long. This is really from me. It's not for
Yeah,
you.
totally. Very therapeutic writing
it,
it down.
it
Again,
is. Yes.
all the emotions I can imagine.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. The second question was, what have been some of the most significant challenges you've faced since your diagnosis, both personally and then also with your loved ones?
I think I've thought about that a lot, and the challenges, it's accepting that it is, and accepting that you can't control the situation. I'm a very organized, efficient person who has control of a lot of things, and I had no control over this. And for me, throughout this journey, I think the thing that I was most concerned about and most challenged by was the chemotherapy treatment, and the thought and process of losing my hair was definitely even probably more traumatic than the tumor. Just watching that fall out was very difficult, and watching my eyelashes disappear, and my eyebrows are tattooed, so I never lost those, which
Well,
was
they
nice.
look great.
But that it was all, and wanting also to maintain my dignity through it, and not to make people uncomfortable around me. So,
Yeah.
all of those, wanting to be strong and still, feeling angry and sad sometimes, and not want, like I said, not wanting people more than anything else is not wanting people to feel uncomfortable around me. And some people are uncomfortable around other people who are sick. They don't know how to respond.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I didn't want that. I didn't want that to be the only topic of conversation when I met people, because there's so many more interesting things to talk about than your
Yeah.
health.
Well, you are one of the most interesting people ever. So we could talk about so many other things and still fill this interview probably
Oh,
times 10.
thank you. You're sweet to say that. I just like talking.
Oh, God. No, you make a good point, I think. It's almost unfortunate that like while you're dealing with something so heavy and like you said, it feels very out of control, out of your control, losing your hair, and going through everything with chemo. I think it's like the fact that you do have to consider how it's making other people feel, I think is a true also insight into your demeanor and how, empathetic you are. So I think the fact that you even brought that up is such a strong reflection of your character.
Oh, well, thank you for that. Thank
Yeah.
you. It's but it's important that people be comfortable, right? And so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Um, the next question was, are there any personal qualities or sources of strength that have helped you through this experience?
Well, I don't know. I never ever think of myself as a strong person, but I've had a lot of people tell me over the last 8 months or so that I am a strong person. And so I'm beginning to accept that as a reality. Faith is a very important part of my life. And I really believe that that's helped keep me calm.
Hmm.
Um, I don't tend towards emotions. Like, I'm not a crier.
Hmm.
Uh, anyway, it's not that I don't feel it. I do feel it inside, but that's just not an outward expression for me. But my faith has helped me a lot. I mean, I've been angry with God too, and then I think, what do I have to be angry about? Because I'm in my 60s, and when I go to that chemo clinic, I see young people there, very, very young people, and there's so much injustice about that. When I die, I've got a conversation with God about that. I can tell you. Uh, so I think that maybe it's the faith and the strength, and also just knowing that I'm loved by so many people. Like I said, Wayne has been, my husband has been exceptional. Like, really, I'm not sure I would have been able to make the journey without him. He's been determinedly optimistic. When I was diagnosed, they told me that it's a rare type. Only 15% of women get this particular type of cancer, and it's aggressive. But they have good drugs to treat it. They told me that at the beginning, and so Wayne took that and he said, we're going to be fine because they have those good drugs to treat it. So whatever you have to do to go through that, whatever you have to go through, you have to do it, because we're going to come out the other side of it. And so that's kind of a resilience was always there behind me. So it wasn't a strength of character for me so much as Wayne's strength, holding me up through it. My brothers and sisters and my children, my nieces and nephews, my friends as well, particularly my women friends,
Hmm.
my sisters, and sister-in-laws have been exceptional. But Wayne's been the one that's come to every appointment, every treatment, been there with me as I'm crying when my hair is falling out, watching it fall into the sink. You know, he just took over looking after everything here in the house. And yeah, I think that's helped me an awful lot. I
Yeah.
was never isolated. So that's an important part of it, I think. The journey is not to be.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned you feel like you have a lot of loved ones, sorry, and it's so true. Ellen, I mean, for anyone who's watching this, Ellen is like the sibling that glues together my whole dad's family and all of the cousins. So you are so loved, and we're so appreciative of you and Wayne also.
That is sweet, but you're all great. That's why it's easy.
So, why do you think organizations like Relay for Life are essential in raising awareness and supporting those impacted by cancer?
One thing I've learned from my diagnosis and the response from the medical team that we've had here in New Brunswick, who have been exceptional, every single one of them have been exceptional nurses, technicians, doctors. But it's those little things that organizations like Relay do, and another one, Run for the Cure.
Hmm.
Uh, I always thought when we supported organizations like that, or through the Canadian Cancer Society, we were supporting research, and the research is terribly important. It's because
Hmm.
of the research that we have so much success now with people who have been diagnosed, particularly with breast cancer. Um, but it's providing help for women who need a wig, or
Yeah.
financial resources for families who need to travel. Like, we live 15 minutes from the hospital, but somebody else needs to travel 2 hours, and those expenses can accrue. So the organizations like Relay and other organizations that give that support, that financial support, at a time when you have enough to worry about,
Yeah, absolutely.
have to be worrying about finances. Like, one of the drugs that I have to take was an injection after I'd received my treatment, and we learned that that drug cost $1,600 a shot, and our insurance does not cover that particular drug. So we learned that private donors have been providing the finances required for that treatment. So
Wow.
all of that is done, and that private donor may well be Relay for Life. Like, we never know who
Yeah.
the donors are. So that's what I think is so important. And also, cancer takes priority. We learned that at the hospital, which I was really shocked to learn.
Hmm.
But it's still a drug that causes a lot of pain, hardship, anxiety, and death for people, right?
Yeah.
So I that Relay for Life and the Terry Fox Run, anything that makes us aware of what people are living with, and may ultimately die from, is important. It puts it in our radar. So we need to be aware of that and support those organizations as they continue their good work. And young people like you and your team who are willing to put all those hours of energy into it. I just think that's a marvelous initiative. And it's not a new one for you, Grace. You've been at this a long time. So
Yeah.
and so many people are touched by cancer, I've learned. Like, within our own family, we've
Hmm.
been touched, but I don't know if you have a group of 6 people together, if there's one person in that room that hasn't been touched by either through a diagnosis for themselves or a loved one. It's
Yeah.
invasive. So it's nice to be reminded. It's important that we be reminded that there's more than just research that takes place with this money that we donate, you know.
Yeah, that's a really nice take on it. And I know you mentioned you put 6 people in a room. Everyone can find some
Yes.
way that they've been impacted. And at Relay, we say that's like our why, or like
Yeah.
why we relay. So you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly it. Like everyone has a reason that they want to be a part or want to donate or want to sponsor us or some sort of way to support us. And I think you made a good point. It's so much of it does go to research and it's fabulous, but they also don't overlook those more human impacts of
Yes.
cancer, like you mentioned, wigs and travel costs. So yeah, I think you've
And that's
touched
a good
on a lot
and
of
that's
research.
a good word. It's the human points of it. The
Yeah,
human points of the research is critically important,
of course.
important. But we have to remember the relationships that are affected by this, and that money can help sustain those types of things as well for
Yeah,
folks. Mhm.
precisely. Yeah. Okay, and our last question of the most lovely interview and catch up with you, Ellen, is that if you could share a message with someone recently diagnosed with cancer, what would you tell them?
Interestingly, that's the one that kept me awake last night because I wondered what I would say.
Hmm.
I think it's important that we not lose hope, even when it's not good news, when it's going to be terminal. I think it's important that we not lose hope. I think it's really important that folks not isolate themselves. It's it's impossible to make this journey without other people. And I also think it's important that we have to accept that people will respond in whatever way they can, whatever way they're able to, and that's okay. That there's no bad way to 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 live the journey. Um, I think you need to find a place within yourself. I'm able to do that through prayer, other people through yoga, through exercise, through meditation, to come to accept it, to accept what is, whatever
Mhm.
it is going to be. Um, if they're able to do that, and not to beat themselves up when they're not able to do it, because it's okay to be angry, it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be depressed, it's okay to say why me, but not to stay there, to try to pull themselves out of that place if they're able to, and receive counseling if they need that as
Yeah.
well. Hope is the most important thing, is to hold on to hope, even a little tiny sprig of it. Just get hold of that and hang on to it in tough days. And,
Yeah,
and don't feel that you have to be strong all the time, because you don't. It's okay to make it all about yourself too, some days, right? I mean,
absolutely.
we had to have that conversation with Mark, my son, our son, who's intellectually disabled, and had to say to him, you know what, Mark, for the first time in 40 years, it's not about you. It's about somebody else. So it's okay to say that. It's okay to say, it's about me.
Yeah.
I'm not having a good day, so leave me alone. If you don't want me to yell at you, walk out of the room.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Absolutely. It's nice to hear that, you also recognize that I feel like a lot of times hope is such like a huge word that we use at Relay. It's such a strong word and it's so normal for that to waver and go up and down throughout a cancer diagnosis or treatment or even seeing a loved one go through that. So I think the viewers or anyone would really appreciate you saying that even when it's really damn hard to still just hold on a little bit.
If
Yeah.
you hang on to it, Grandma used to say, live in hope or die in despair. It took me a long time to figure out what that meant. And so I've decided that I'm going to live in hope, and
Yeah.
not just with cancer, with anything. Hope for this world that seems to be a bit troubling right now, and hope for a good whatever. Just hang on to hope. I think it's probably the most important email, besides love, of course. I think that's,
Yeah.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
That was beautiful, Ellen. Thank you so much. Everyone here at Relay, we're so excited to watch this back now and for, taking time out of your day. I know you're very busy to talk
Yes.
about like not easy topic at all. So thank you. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for doing it. Thank you to you and your team for taking it on. You young people give me a lot of hope. I
No.
think we'll be okay in the end, somehow.
Yeah.